What is up, everybody? Chris of Midlife Crisis Media here. Welcome to the next Film Collection 2024 live stream. Today, I'm going to be talking about all of the 4K UHDs in my physical media collection that begin with the letters, or beginning with the letters. What is it? Oh, J through L. If I only looked at the top of my screen, I could have not stumbled on that. Anyway. How's everybody doing tonight? I'm thinking tonight is not going to be super long. I did not add the M's into tonight's stream because then it would have been super long because there's a lot of M's and N's in my UHD collection. So I wanted to keep it simple. Don't talk myself hoarse. I have a very busy day tomorrow. I need to get to bed early. But yeah, let's talk about some of these movies. But why am I doing this? There's 4 reasons. It's fun. It's good content for the channel. I get to talk to awesome people. And it's good to have a visual record of everything in your collection just in case something bad happens. So let's get started with the first movie that starts with J in my collection, and that is Jack Reacher. This was Tom Cruise attempting to have another franchise on his hands. This is based on a series of books that has not so recently, I want to say within the last few years, last 2 or 3 years, turned into a pretty popular television series that's on Amazon Prime that stars Tad from Blue Mountain State. Not the first choice I would have picked, but it seems like it's working out. But yeah, this is based on a series of novels that were decently popular, I understand, and this is based on, I think, like the 8th book in the series. This particular movie is. And it's really, really good. It's not an action movie like everyone would think. I remember when we saw the trailers, they made it look like it was an action movie, except instead of Tom Cruise playing, Ethan Hunt, he's playing like this kind of sarcastic, aloof kind of guy who just doesn't give a shit, just going around beating random people up and gets involved in some kind of conspiracy. No, it turns out he's a ex-military policeman who kind of just gets involved in random things and feels obligated to help people that can't help themselves, kind of thing. And there's like this big conspiracy he gets involved with. It's kind of crazy. It's it's a very, very solid movie, if you ask me. I saw it in the theater opening weekend, I want to say, and everybody I saw it with thought it was pretty rad. It's also directed by the guy who's been directing all the recent Mission Impossible movies, Christopher McQuarrie, who's directed Mission Impossible 5, 6, and 7, and will direct Part 8 also. So I want to say this is where their relation... Was this before or after Part 5? I think this actually came out after Part 5. I want to say yes. But yeah, really fun movie. I like it quite a bit. Werner Herzog, who is a director of kind of art housey, pretentious movies, plays the villain in this. He's also the guy from the first episode of The Mandalorian. He's like, show me the baby. That's him. And he plays a pretty spooky bad guy in it. I like this one quite a bit. The sequel, on the other hand, Never Look Back or Never Turn Back or something like that, is kind of god-awful. I was really sad that it was like Kobe Smolder's first big movie, not having anything to do with the MCU, where she plays Maria Hill. This was like her first big movie as like the second person on the roster when it comes to like the names in the film, and it bombed horribly, and it was pretty bad, if you ask me. Next up is Jigsaw. This is Saw 8, I think. Yeah, Saw 8. And this was the first attempt to reboot the series of the Saw series. Not like a reboot, it was attempting to reignite it. So Saw kind of was really popular up until Part 4. I want to say the peak was 3, money-wise. And then 4 hit, and it kind of plateaued. And then from 5... 6 and 7 down, the grosses just dive-bombed. I think Saw 7 kind of made a little bit more money because it was in 3D, so there was a higher ticket price, so it made a little bit more money than 6. But, yeah, it kind of ended there. But because it was such a big moneymaker, these movies do not cost a lot of money to make, but they made a huge return on investment. That Lionsgate couldn't leave it alone, so they're like, we'll let the series, rest in peace for, 5, 6 years, and then we'll try again and bring it back, and that's what they did here. And I think they were mostly successful. It's another one where there is a secret apprentice of John Kramer of Jigsaw, and we don't know who they are. and what their deal is. And, the whole point is like a jigsaw puzzle, trying to put the pieces together, trying to figure out who it is by the end. It's okay. It could have been a lot better. It does drag for a little bit, but the final moment, the final kill before the movie ends is pretty damn fantastic. And I remember I saw this on the IMAX the night it premiered. It was like the opening night, Friday. And me and my buddy Charlie, who had gone to see most of these movies in the theater, I introduced him to them. And then from that point on, every time a new one was released, theatrically, we'd go see it. Went and saw this, and we're both like, definitely cool, but still don't think the franchise really does need to come back at all. But I wasn't sad that it existed. I thought it was pretty decent. The next movie that came out, Spiral, the other attempt to reboot it, is the one that I can't stand. And then we have this franchise that just keeps going and going. I'm not complaining. And that's the John Wick films. So, start off with the OG John Wick. Saw this in the theater, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks after it opened. Trailers didn't really grab me. I was like, oh, look, Keanu trying to have a big comeback because, the Matrix movies are over and he hasn't been able to find some big movie to be in ever since. So we're like, oh, and it's directed by the two people that directed the first one. One of them was Keanu Reeves' stunt double from the Matrix films. So I'm like, oh, look, they're trying to make some new like Matrix thing, for Keanu Reeves to do, bring him back into the spotlight. Well, guess what? It worked. I went and saw it, like I said, a couple of weeks after it had opened, and I was pleasantly surprised. I basically knew nothing about it other than the fact that it was an action movie and Keanu Reeves was in it, because the trailer didn't really tell you much. It was just like random action scenes and Keanu Reeves like sneering a lot. So I was just kind of like, I do enjoy Keanu Reeves. I think he's a fun person to watch in films when he's actually, doing stuff, not like Dracula where he's awful. And he does all of his own stunts. It is absolutely crazy. I know a lot of people complained about the reason why John Wick's character goes on a rampage in this movie. And if you have not seen the movie, it sounds silly, but when you see it in context of the film, it is kind of like a heartbreaking thing, and you can totally understand why he goes on this killing spree. But action scenes are great, has a fantastic soundtrack that's kind of like electro and rock combined. It's a lot of fun, and it starts to like create this world. Like it does a lot of world building, which is one of the things I think I enjoyed the most when I saw it the first time. I did not see it coming. I thought it was just going to be this simple action movie. No, it introduces this entire underworld of hit people, and there's like safe houses, and there's a special kind of currency that they use, and it's nuts. And I was like, that is rad as hell that someone thought that would work for just what looked like a simple action movie. And it makes it so much fun and interesting when it comes to the world that when they announced the sequel, I was all in. And the thing that was funny about the first one was I had asked a couple of friends of mine if they're interested in coming with me to see it. And they're like, no, we're not interested. Have fun. I'm like, all right, cool. And I guess the word of mouth got around that the first one was really good. So when the second one came out, they were like, do you own the first John Wick? Can we see it? And I'm like, yeah, I do. They're like, we want to watch it. The second one looks kind of cool. I'm like, all right. And they came back after they saw it. They're like, yeah, we want to go see the second one with you. I'm like, all right, fine. So I've seen every one of them since with these two people. And the second one is more of the same. So there was two directors for the first one, Chad Stahelski and what was the other dude's name? Sheldon Lettich, I think. I can't really read it. They ended up like going separate ways. Leach ended up going on to direct the first, Deadpool 2. What was it? Hobbs and Shaw, that Fast and Furious spinoff. Money Train, and he's made a name for himself. And his movies are very, very fun. And Chad Stahelski has gone on directing each of the John Wick movies, and you can see that with each movie he's made, he has learned a lot more about how to actually direct and like where to put the camera and all that for like the best effect, and actually talk to actors and get them to do things. And each movie I think gets better in that respect. But when it comes to like the action stuff, it does ramp up, and I love it, especially in part 2. This one I thought was super fun. Continues the storyline like basically right where the first one left off and keeps on going. And although like Ruby Rose is in it, and I cannot stand Ruby Rose at all, but she's silent in the movie, which is nice. I do like this one more than the first, so naturally that ended up becoming a huge hit. So we get John Wick 3 Parabellum, which once again ups the ante again, does even more crazy world building, and just throws everything they possibly can, or the Chad Stahelski possibly could, at Keanu Reeves this time out, and introduces some new characters. They actually starts to do a little bit of a globe hopping like a James Bond movie. And Halle Berry comes into the play into the movie, and she's an assassin too, but her specialty is not only guns, but she has like German shepherds that she has trained to be attack dogs, and they are fun to watch. And the movie ends like on a cliffhanger where you think John's dead, but of course this movie made a killing at the box office, so we got John Wick Chapter 4, which I think is where they started finally pushing it a little too far. Not to say I don't like it. I do enjoy it quite a bit. I do think it's probably the lesser of all the films. This one is way too damn long, way too drawn out. There's like scenes. There's one scene where Ian McShane's character, who's been in the movie since the first one, is walking through an art museum to go and talk to the villain, who is not Alexander Skarsgård, the one who played Pennywise. God damn it, I cannot remember his name. Skarsgård. I know he's a Skarsgård. Whatever. Skarsgård, the one that played Pennywise. Ian McShane is walking through this museum, this art museum, to get to him, and it follows him, like the camera follows him for, I want to say, a good minute and a half, just walking past art pieces. And I'm like, well, you couldn't have cut this down? We don't need to see all this crap. Just get right to it. That's kind of my problem, because there's even like action scenes that are all drawn out for no reason. Like John Wick has to get up this big flight of stairs to get to a meeting at a specific time, and he gets to the top and then gets knocked right back down to the bottom and has to do it all over again. I'm like, really? Can we just move on and just get to it? So I think they're starting to like kiss their own ass a little bit now, and like are a little too self-indulgent, I want to say. Like, okay, we know that you guys know what you're doing at this point. You don't have to keep rubbing our noses in it. Just get on with it and become more efficient storytellers. A lot of new characters introduced in here. There's a lot of characters that are going to get spin-off movies. We've already got one coming out. The trailer actually just dropped, I think, last week, called Ballerina, that stars Ana de Armas. And we're also supposed to get a spin-off starring Donnie Yen, who plays the blind swordsman character in here, who is a lot of fun to watch. And does it end the way it does? This movie made a ton of money. I don't think there is not going to be a Chapter 5. So even though it ends in a specific way, it possibly is bullshit, and that's exactly what I'm expecting. But I enjoy it. It's just that, like I said, it's too long and drawn out for its own good. But I still enjoy it. I am excited about the Ballerina movie. The trailer looked pretty rad. Next up, we have a classic from the 90s. That's Jumanji. I saw this in the theater opening weekend and didn't really know anything about it. And although the only reason I really wanted to see it was Robin Williams, because he was like ruling the theaters back then. You know, Mrs. Doubtfire, and I'm trying to think what other big movies he had. Oh, definitely was not Jack. I remember that bombed horribly, but I remember Mrs. Doubtfire was a huge hit. Then he did this, and this was a huge hit. And they did Patch Adams, and that was a massive hit. So, like, I was extremely interested in this because it involves gaming, a board game, and Robin Williams' comedy shtick, which I love. And it's really fun, even though it's just full of really early 1990s CGI. This came out in 95, and CGI had only been like a thing for about 4 years. So seeing the filmmakers trying to make fully CGI animals like lions and like chimpanzees and stuff, and they do not look good. The rhinos, they do not look good. But I applaud them for trying. But it's a really fun movie. It's not as funny as a lot of Robin Williams' other films, but it's just a lot of fun. So highly recommend that one. And I have watched this one because I watched it right before the third film came out. But right here I have the second movie, and that is Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle. So everyone thought this was going to be a reboot, but it actually turned out that it is a actual sequel. Just Robin Williams isn't involved, and this one has Dwayne Johnson, Jack Black, Kevin Hart, and what's her freaking name? Ugh. Damn it. It's like right on the tip of my freaking tongue, and I cannot read because my eyes are terrible. Karen Gillan from Doctor Who. I remember her as Amy Pond from Doctor Who, the Matt Smith years. I had a huge crush on her. Still kind of do. And the board game has kind of, over the years in the movie world, morphed into a video game, and a bunch of teenagers get sucked into the video game world where all the things that you saw coming out of the board game in the original Jumanji, everything kind of lives. And the teenagers end up inhabiting video game stereotypes inside the game. So like the nerdy kid ends up being stuck inside, The Rock. And a girl ends up like this like prissy, like kind of snobbish girl ends up being stuck inside Jack Black. And he gets a lot of the best lines when he like looks at his dick for the first time and goes like, "Oh my God, it has a handle." I think it's a lot of fun. I was not expecting much from it, so I think my expectations were pretty low, and I really, really enjoyed it. So, and there was at one point, I think it was the dick joke, it has a handle. That was when I was drinking my Slurpee, and I almost choked on it because I was laughing so hard while I was taking, like I didn't expect that line, so I was taking a sip and I almost choked. And I ended up getting this 4K from Korea. This is one of those ones I had to order from overseas because there is a 3D Blu-ray in here as well. Have not picked up the third movie yet. I do want to own it, but the Korean version was really expensive at the time when it first came out, so I was like, I'll wait until it drops in price a little bit, maybe 6 months or whatever, and I still just totally forgot about it. I should have just picked it up when it first came out. But next up we have Jungle Cruise, which was another sort of franchise Disney was trying to spin off. Disney has this obsession with making live-action films based off of the rides from their amusement parks, which I think is kind of stupid, although we did get some really good Pirates of the Caribbean movies out of that idea. So there's that. But they've tried twice to make Haunted Mansion, a film series, and that did not happen either time. And didn't really happen here either. This also had the unfortunate circumstance of coming out pretty much around the same time that the COVID restrictions ended, so not a lot of people were going to the theater. I know Disney probably thought this would be a draw to get people to go back to the theater. Turned out that would not come until Top Gun Maverick hit theaters. So I went and saw this. I went and visited my mother, and she's like, "Oh, I think it was for my birthday." And she was like, "Let's go see a movie." And I'm like, "Okay, what's playing that we haven't seen?" So this was the only thing I think I hadn't seen, and she was actually still interested in seeing it. So we went and checked it out, and it's a lot of fun. It has a lot of weird supernatural stuff going on in it that's kind of trying to... I remember I compared this to, if you were to take like the Amazon Queen from back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, maybe 50s, and mix it with the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, you would get this, because it's trying way too hard to do too many things. But I do like Emily Blunt quite a bit. I think she's a fun actress, and The Rock can be fun when he's not acting like a douche. So I enjoyed this one, and I did not pick this up right away. Normally, when I enjoy a movie and it comes out on home video, I rush out and get it because I do want to get the slipcover with it. And I put off buying this for like 8 months, and then randomly went to a Best Buy with some friends and like way north of me, and we're just wandering around, and this was sitting on the shelf discounted and still had the slipcover, but every place I had been prior to that, it was missing it. So I was like, well, to get it for like $8-9 or whatever it was, $9.99, and still have the slipcover, I was like, I'll just pick it up. Next up is God. No. All the no. I did like this when I first saw it because I was kind of like in a little bit of shell shock. The whole thing I always talked about with Mortal Kombat Annihilation and Beverly Hills Cop 3, where I was just so excited that I was watching this particular thing that didn't realize how kind of bad it was right off the bat. And then like on subsequent watches, I was like, oh, I made a mistake. and that is the Justice League movie that came out in like 2016, 2017, or whatever it was. And this is the version where everything was tinkered with because, Zack Snyder, who had directed Man of Steel and then Batman versus Superman, the whole plan was he was going to direct all of these movies in a row, one after another, back to back, to keep like his vision of the Snyderverse going. So it was like Man of Steel, then Batman versus Superman, then Justice League Part 1, and then Justice League Part 2, and then he was going to do another Superman movie, from what I understand. And then that was going to be his contribution with other directors, putting other characters' movies in between all of those. So the thing was, while Zack Snyder did film, I almost had like a cough pop up at that point, and I felt like I was getting breathless. Jesus. During the making, like I guess I almost called him Joss Whedon. Zack Snyder was almost finished filming this, and then he had a personal tragedy. His daughter, committed suicide. So he basically dropped out of making this movie in order to take care of everything, grieve, and all that. And Warner Brothers didn't want to wait for him to finish, so they essentially says, "Okay, you're fired. Sorry about your daughter, but." And we're going to bring in Joss Whedon, from, doing Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, Serenity, Firefly, all that. We're going to bring him in. He directed the two Avengers films, the first two Avengers films, and those were huge, huge, huge films. So, of course, let's give it to him to fix. And he ended up, reshooting a ton of stuff because he did not like the way Zack Snyder was going dark with everything. He wanted it to be bright and colorful, and Superman can't be mopey, and Batman has to crack jokes all the time in his world. So, yeah, it ended up turning this into a mess. He reshot almost half the movie again. And the whole Superman's upper lip debacle happens because of it, because they wanted to reshoot pretty much all the scenes involving Henry Cavill as Superman. So the thing was, he was also shooting Mission Impossible Fallout at the time. And Tom Cruise had broken his ankle on that infamous stunt where he jumped across a building and his toes touched his shin. So during the downtime, he came back to do the reshoots, but Paramount refused to let him shave his mustache off in case Tom Cruise healed fast. So they basically had to CGI out this mustache of his, and it makes his upper lip look like a cartoon, and it is really strange. He looks like Uncanny Valley. He looks fake. And it is bizarre. And I can't believe they said it looked good. Let's keep going. Let's not, let's just say the hell with Paramount. Let him shave his mustache off and he can grow it back in a week. Who cares? Nope, they reshot all of his stuff and it looks like garbage. And the movie makes no sense now. It has this really silly opening that has this really strange resolution that leads Batman to believe that there's bad guys coming by seeing these three symbols on a wall going oh no, bad people are coming. No, that makes no sense. It's got unnecessary comedy to make Batman into a Schwarzenegger in all of his movies where he's just cracking jokes and being stupid. They recolored the finale of the movie. He recolor timed it. He made it this weird pink color, and it's really off-putting. They inserted all these shots of this family in the war zone from the end of the film, where these people that everybody evacuated this area where was a war power is happening, and no, this one family decided to stay, and they keep on cutting back to them hiding in their house and all this. It's dumb. It is so dumb and so bad. But I enjoyed it when I first saw it because I was seeing all these superheroes realized, in real life for once. Finally got to see a film version of The Flash. Finally got to see a film version of Aquaman. Finally got to see a film version of Wonder Woman. It was just pretty fantastic. And Cyborg, got to see Cyborg, and he's pretty awesome in it too. But it's just Joss Whedon turned this into a big mess that couldn't figure out what the hell it wanted to be. And he took out all of the setups that Zack Snyder had planned for the next Justice League movie, which is kind of a bummer. So I have this steel book that I got, I think, from overseas because it comes with the movie in 3D also. But when I watched it on home video after I got this set was when I went, oh, God, I made a mistake. Thankfully, social media and Restore the Snyderverse released the Snyder Cut hashtag that was going around, made HBO, Warner Brothers rethink things. And they're like, you know what? Let's throw a few more $1 million at Zack Snyder and let him actually finish his version of Justice League, because I think they realized that they did make a mess and they kind of ruined that Snyderverse DC EU thing by releasing that piece of crap. So they released Zack Snyder's Justice League on HBO Max, and it was the big thing that got people to sign up for the service. It's what made them a hit. And I watched this the moment it appeared on HBO Max. I came home from work, did not wait. I came home from work, grabbed something to drink, and sat down and watched this 4-hour epic in one sitting. And it is still the same sort of movie that the original one is. A lot of stuff that was Zack Snyder's vision was still in the original one. All that stupid garbage was cut out. And man, every single character in this gets time to shine. They have great introductions, great interactions with each other. Nothing really silly. There are a couple of pretentious moments, like these women worshiping Aquaman in, what is it, Iceland or whatever, where he's hiding, like standing on the shore and singing to him as he like goes back out to sea, and it's kind of silly. But outside of that, this is a fantastic, and I want to say probably one of my all-time favorite superhero movies now. Everything about it is great. The finale has been fixed. It has this like super epic feeling. It's setting things up for a part 2, which was already planned. And I absolutely love it. And it even has like this coda thing that pays off that moment in Batman vs. Superman that everybody always complained about, where Batman's like sitting in the Batcave and all of a sudden Flash's face shows up and goes, "Oh no, I'm too soon. She's the key to everything. Don't let her die." Blah. You know, tell my mom I love her. Blah. You know, it pays off that by showing you what that was supposed to represent. And it's awesome, except for Jared Leto's Joker showing up, but he's actually pretty cool in this version compared to what he was like in Suicide Squad. But I absolutely loved it, and I ended up watching it again the next day. It's 4 hours long, and I watched it twice in 2 days. Absolutely loved it. So absolutely had to get this when it came out on 4K. I remember I didn't even realize it was out. Went to Target to do some grocery shopping and saw it sitting there, and I was like, "Oh, yoink. I don't care if it's $35. You're mine." So Darkseid wasn't even mentioned, I don't think, in Joss Whedon's version. Darkseid is a huge thing. Him and what was his right-hand man's name? Desaad is in it from the cartoon that I remember from back in the day, the Super Friends and all that. And Steppenwolf got completely redesigned, and he's actually kind of a sympathetic bad guy. Actually pretty rad. And it's R-rated. You would not believe. There is gore in here you would not believe. Everything is fantastic in that. I love it. Continuing with the Justice League, we got some of these animated films. We got Justice League Dark. So I had a Blu-ray of this. That's how I watched it. And then when I found out that there was a 4K, I ended up swapping it out for that. This one is, I think, the first No, it was Constantine. No, this came out first. Then it was Constantine. Yeah, Justice League Dark came out first. This is the Supernatural Justice League. So it's Constantine, Deadman, Zatanna, Swamp Thing, and I can never remember the other guy's name, the one that's like the demon. John Constantine, Zatanna, Deadman, Etrigan. Etrigan, he's like the demon right here. And then because they didn't have any confidence in these characters like selling copies, they're like, well, we'll just shoehorn Batman into it so people will see him on the cover and be like, oh, a new Batman movie. But it's really about all these other people. Batman's barely in it. He kind of like shows up, tags along a little bit, and then it's like it focuses on everybody else. This one is rad as hell. I absolutely loved it. I loved all the characters. They're super fun. They curse up a storm in this. I thought it was like really forward looking that, Logan made a lot of money. Let's do that too with these animated movies now. Let's go that route. It's on video. Who cares? Absolutely love it. Super fun. And it sets up a lot of stuff that's coming later on down the road in these animated films, which culminated in Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. This is the Infinity War of the DC animated film universe. This one is R-rated too, and it's basically Darkseid has basically taken out everybody. And it's pretty fantastic. Like, everybody's trying to fight back against him. It ends in a sad way, but there's a possibility that it could be rectified. And I thought they were going to make another one that was going to be like Endgame for the MCU, but no, we never got that. I'm pretty sad about it, but it kind of like leaves off on a cliffhanger. Like, did they fix things? Did they not? But Absolutely fantastic. I was watching it with my jaw open, like the whole, like my jaw was dropped. I was just like, I can't believe I'm seeing this in an animated film that was essentially started off being for kids, and now it's kind of evolved into this. One of the best movies that they have ever made. And then there's always all these other Justice League movies. I have seen one. I have not seen the other. I have seen this, and that is Justice League Throne of Atlantis. This is the commemorative edition. It has a few more extras on it compared to the Blu-ray version. And I found this, of all places, at the Exchange down the street. Normally I go there looking for video games, but I'll check out their 4K section to see if they have anything. And when I saw that they had a very cheap version of this, which I already had on Blu-ray, I was like, oh, I'll upgrade because it was like $11 or something like that. I'm like, I'll pick that up and swap it out. And plus it also comes with some extras, which you can see right here. I'll snag it. It's a pretty fun Justice League movie that focuses mostly on Aquaman. And they make him out to be a pretty badass, or a pretty big badass in these movies. This one I have not seen yet. And this one is Justice Society World War II. And I need to check this. Excuse me, I got the burps all of a sudden. I keep meaning to watch this, and then I go, oh no, I'm going to watch this other thing. And it's usually something I've already seen. But the fight for freedom is now. Barry Allen's relaxing trip to Metropolis is about to go sideways. While speeding off to help in an impromptu battle, the Flash blazes and rips through time, only to find himself dropped into the middle of World War II. It's here that the Flash meets Wonder Woman and her top secret team, known as the Justice Society of America. Witness the raging tides of war, gripping combat, and the velocity of valor as the Flash fights to get back to his own timeline. So it's another version of the Flashpoint paradox, which ended up kind of becoming the Flash live-action movie. So I might actually watch this tonight because that actually sounds pretty rad. I love these like alternate timeline movies that they've done. They actually did a Flashpoint paradox animated film, which is pretty cool. Not as good as the comic book it's based on. What's up, Nick? Oh, Barry, yeah, you always trying to save your mom and ruin time in the process. You son of a bitch. I don't know if the first film in this series is available on 4K. I should probably look for it because I like that one more than this one. But next up's Kick-Ass 2. I was a huge fan of the first Kick-Ass. I didn't really know anything about the comic book that it was based on. I knew it was based on, or it was directed by Matthew Vaughn, who I have enjoyed most of his movies so far up to that point. Ended up getting free tickets to see an advanced screening right before the first C2E2 in Chicago. I went and saw it with this dude I used to hang out with. Didn't realize that after the screening, Chloe Grace Moretz and Aaron Johnson were going to walk out and do an impromptu Q&A. That was cool. What was not cool was some rando dude who's probably in his mid-40s basically asking Chloe Grace Moretz, who was, I want to say 13, 14 at the time that she was sitting on that stage, if she had a boyfriend. And it was the creepiest thing ever. It got so awkward in there. And I think they almost kicked the guy out for asking. She just kind of says, well, I don't have a boyfriend, but I do have an older brother who lifts weights. So, yeah, think about it. Really enjoyed that one. It's like a really dark superhero movie. And I was really excited about part 2. They got the entire cast back, including adding Jim Carrey and a few other actors into it. Although the guy who played Kick-Ass, one of Kick-Ass's friends, the guy who was on all the seasons of American Horror Story, plays Quicksilver in the X-Men movies, didn't come back, and they replaced him with someone else who had zero charisma. This one is not nearly as good. It's basically just more crass and violent than the first one, and it just isn't nearly as fun. The characters aren't nearly as likable, even though that Red Mist in the first movie was kind of a bad guy. He was kind of likable, too. You felt bad for him. In this one, he's just like the most unlikable character ever, and you don't even want to see him when he's on screen. At least I didn't. And it's just not nearly as cool. I ended up reading the comic book version of part 2. It kind of has some of the same things going on in the movie, but it goes off in a completely different direction. And I like that way more than this. And I think it's funny that Jim Carrey was in that and then made a big deal about, after seeing the movie, that, oh, I disown the movie. I don't want to have anything to do with something that's that violent. I'm like, you read the script. You probably saw the first movie. You knew what you were getting into, you dummy. Next up is one of my favorites from the 80s. Also, we watched this on my podcast, the movie starting this season. I actually released the episode last month, I think. Very definition of never judge a book by its cover kind of movie, or never judge a movie by its poster. And that's Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I remember this came out when I was in junior high. I remember seeing the poster at a movie theater and going like, the hell? I remember seeing the commercials on television and going, the hell? Why is this a thing? Why is this a movie? Who thought people were going to see it? And apparently I was right, because it did not make a whole lot of money. It made money. I think it made its money back and maybe a little bit more. So it was a small amount of profit, but it was not a big hit at all. And then my parents, I want to say we rented it, and I watched it kind of begrudgingly. And then I kind of fell in love with it after that. I was like, wow, you know what? I mean, as dumb as the premise is, it's a lot of fun, and they milk it for everything they possibly can. The Chiodo brothers, who are known for doing special effects for movies, like physical effects, like they did the Critters. I'm trying to think. The Chiodo brothers did the Critters. I can't remember. It wasn't Stan? No, that was God, what's his name from Dusk Till Dawn. Anyway, they were known for making like physical creatures. They not only directed the movie, wrote the movie, they also did all the effects for it, like when it came to like the makeup effects for the clowns. And they are creepy and charming and funny at the same time. There is some really messed up stuff going on in here for a PG-13 horror movie. There's like the person we watched the movie with, Jason, who's been on the podcast since the very beginning of its creation, said that the first time he ever saw this was on cable, or was it Jeremy? No, it was Jason. He said that he was changing channels on cable, came across this. The first thing he saw when the channel came on was like the clown leaning up against this cotton candy, big blob of cotton candy, and like tapping it, and then pulls out a straw and sticks it in there and starts drinking whatever's in there. And then he realizes there's a person in there. And he said it freaked him the hell out. And I thought it was really kind of cool that they were using all these like things you associate with a carnival, but turning it into something evil, like popcorn will eat you. Shadow puppets will eat you. Cotton candy is like a cocoon to melt you down so that the clowns can feed on you. Stuff like that. It's just really, really funny. There's like a puppet scene where a clown sticks his hand up someone's ass and is controlling them like a puppet. And I even made fun of it the entire time we were watching on the podcast by like making the sound that the clown makes when he pulls his hand out of the person's ass. Yeah, and I want to play that game so bad, Nick. Everyone says it's actually pretty fun. I was watching someone stream it on Twitch, and they said that not only was it fun to play, but it actually like feels like the movie. Like they did not change anything about it. It still felt like you were watching the film, just in video game form. So absolutely love this movie. It is silly. It is stupid. It has one of the greatest theme songs in the history of film. I watch this at least once a year, and I was super thrilled that I was able to snag the steelbook of this. Shout Factory put this out, and super happy about it. Next up, we have: did this need to be on 4K? I ask this question to myself all the time whenever I pre-order something on Amazon. I'm like, does that really need to be on 4K? I don't care. I want to have it in 4K. And that's Kindergarten Cop. Does it benefit from being in 4K? Not really. But I saw this in the theater when it first came out because my grandma, I brought this up multiple times. My grandma had a huge crush on Arnold, and whenever she would be visiting us in Chicago, in Illinois, and there was an Arnold movie in theaters, she would be like, "Can we go see that Arnold movie?" And then the entire time we'd be sitting there, all you would hear from her is, "Oh my," whenever he's on screen. "Oh my." And it was really annoying and obnoxious and kind of funny at the same time. I remember her doing it the whole movie for The Running Man. Just, "Oh my." And then like the "oh my's" would escalate as like, they would show more of his body at points. "Oh my." This is one of the, I want to say this is he did Twins first. This is the follow-up to Twins with Ivan Reitman. This one I do think is funnier than Twins. I quote this one a lot when I do my Arnold voice. I'm like, "You know, wipe your little tushies," But yeah, Arnold's like a cop that goes undercover pretending to be a school teacher because he's looking for this like criminal that he's been after for like years, and he has a feeling that he's going to come back to this town because he thinks one of the kids in this class that he's subbing for is the son of the person he's after. So he wants to be there when he shows up. And it's a lot of fun. I like it quite a bit. It's actually really well made. Live rent-free in your head. They live rent-free in my head too. And people at work hear them from me way too often. Like, I'll say that too. When people are like whining about like, Chris, can you help us? Chris, can you help us? I'm like, I need to wipe your little tushies. I did not expect this one to be as serious. This is the third film in this particular series, but it serves as a prequel to the other two films. And it starts off being kind of like the same as the other two, being kind of silly and tongue-in-cheek and also having like a lot of action. But then like halfway through, it takes this like really serious turn and it doesn't really recover. But I really liked about this film because it surprised me. And it like all of a sudden I remember like the first half of the movie, I'm like, this is just the other two movies taking place like 40, 50 years earlier. Like, all right. But then that happens. I'm like, okay, they're mixing it up. I love this. And that's The King's Man. So this is the prequel to the Kingsman films about the creation of the secret agent organization. And this one stars Ray Fiennes and also has, Gemma Arterton. I know Rhys Ifans plays Rasputin in it, and he's funny. Same guy directed this, Matthew Vaughn, guy who directed the first Kick-Ass also. This one I really liked. I was surprised, although it had I want to say every movie that came out that weekend. There's one particular weekend in December was when this was released at the same day as The Matrix Resurrections was released. And I made the choice with a bunch of friends, I think Nick was one of them, to go and see The Matrix. And I completely skipped this one. And I didn't see it until it came out on HBO Max. I think it was still HBO Max at that point. And like I said, surprised the hell out of me. And then the following day, I watched this on Max. The next day, I go to Target to go grocery shopping. And as I'm pulling into a line to check out, it's in the little impulse buy movie section that's like right there by the registers. And I was like, don't mind if I do. Even though I could watch it anytime I want for free, I would rather just have a physical copy of it. So snagged it. Pretty good. And that leads us to the other two movies in the series. That's Kingsman Secret Service and The Kingsman The Golden Circle. These are both super fun. I did not realize they were going to be like James Bond spoofs. But like, I just thought they were going to be like some kind of weird comic booky secret agent thing, which is exactly what they are. But they are kind of making fun of the Bond movies at the same time. Secret Service is the first one. Sam Jackson is the villain in this one, and his lisp cracks me up. It does take some weird political turn at the end, and I was like not expecting that, but sure. And then the sequel is probably the first time I ever saw Pedro Pascal and recognized him from something. Pedro Pascal is one of the Kingsmen the statesman who is like a cowboy, and he has like this laser lasso, and he's pretty rad as hell. This one also has Elton John in it for some reason, popping up, and has an action scene. I need to watch both of these again. I saw both in the theater and absolutely loved them. I want to say I had more fun watching the second one than the first one, but I need to watch those. I'll probably just watch all three of them in one day. Those are great. Next up, we have, I think, one of my favorite movies. I think this was considered my favorite movie the year that this came out, which was like 2019. I want to say it came out. I saw this New Year's Day. I always spend New Year's Day at the movie theater just going to see one movie after another. And this was the first movie I saw that day. And I was also the only person under the age of 50 in that theater that day. Apparently, it was early bird special day. And that's Knives Out. So this is Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi follow-up. And he decided to go ahead and make like an Agatha Christie style murder mystery. But it's also a comedy. And Daniel Craig plays the Hercule Poirot type role in his Benoit Blanc. And it's like a really rich author dies, and he's actually like paid. No one knows who paid him to be there to come and investigate the crime. And he ends up interviewing everyone in the family. Everyone's got a possible reason for doing it, to kill the old man. And it turns out to be kind of a really funny thriller, even though I wouldn't even say it's like murder mystery, but I wouldn't even say thriller. It's just like a comedy murder mystery. It's almost like watching Clue at times because it's so silly. Like Anna de Armas's character can't lie. She was the caretaker of the murdered author, and she can't lie. Every time she lies, she vomits. So there's like these times where she's being interviewed and she like will say something untruthfully, and she'll be sitting there like holding it in. And the moment somebody looks away, she'll grab something in the background, just go and put it back, hoping nobody saw her do it. It is super funny. And there is a sequel that was stupidly sold to Netflix called The Glass Onion, which only was released in the theater for 1 week. Luckily, I did see it that week and absolutely loved it. That ended up being my favorite movie of that year also. And it has never been released on home video because Netflix bought it, and now it lives on Netflix, and it's the only way you can see it. Makes no sense. I even tweeted at Netflix. I was like, hey, Netflix, how about releasing a physical version of Glass Onion for everybody who isn't subscribed to your service? Like, Kong Skull Island is next. This is the steelbook that I think I picked up at Target. No, not Target. Best Buy. I think this is the Best Buy exclusive. And the reason I have this is it is a 4K, and it also comes with, does it show? Yep, right there. The 3D turn, spin, damn it, spin, sugar. 3D version that lives on Netflix. Yep. Oh, Glass Onion. I love Glass Onion. I want them to release that physically. They did it with Stranger Things and Orange is the New Black, but for some reason they don't want to do it with any of their movies anymore. They better release the new Beverly Hills Cop on home video. This was supposed to be a parallel thing going on to the Godzilla verse that Legendary was doing at the time. And eventually the plan was to have Godzilla and Kong clash, which has happened twice already. Did not have much in the way of expectations for this. I was kind of like, another Kong movie. Last Kong movie we got was the one by Peter Jackson, and I absolutely hated it. So not thrilled with the prospect of another one. But when I went and saw it, even the trailers were kind of like, I was like, eh. But finally went and saw the movie with a bunch of friends, and really enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun. Tom Hiddleston is a really fun action star. This also has Brie Larson in it. I think it was the first time I had seen Brie Larson in anything since Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I have not seen her in anything prior to that. And then after that, or after this, Captain Marvel. And she looks a little bit lost in this. She looks a little bit lost in a lot of her movies. I like her as an actress, but it looks like she's one of those actors who needs to have a specific kind of director to get a good performance out of her. And apparently the guy who directed Room did that because she won an Oscar for it. But this was not it. But it's a really fun, silly monster movie. They made Kong out to be a pretty cool character to add into that universe. And I've enjoyed the Godzilla versus Kong movies that they've made since. Next up. Okay, so I bought this because it was on sale. Never saw it, but I heard so many good things about it. So I bought it, basically sight unseen, and I ended up really enjoying it. And that is Krampus, The Naughty Cut. So this was directed, envisioned to be an R-rated horror comedy kind of thing. And it ended up getting sliced up to make it a PG-13 movie so it can rake in the little kids' money. And apparently it got good reviews. But a lot of people were also like, well, it feels like it should have been R-rated. Why wasn't it? Well, everyone got cold feet, and they decided to edit the shit out of it. So I never bothered watching it. Even the trailers that I saw in the theater, I was like, nah, that looks like another little cheap PG-13 horror movie. I'm going to skip that, which I skipped most of them anyway. And then I heard that this R-rated or unrated cut was coming out, and that the reviews of that were like stellar. So I said, fine, what the hell, I'll buy it. And I watched it, and I did enjoy it quite a bit. Although I didn't like the fact that the title character is barely in the movie. So Krampus has like an entourage of little imp things and little toys that do a lot of the killing in it. They're like little gremlins, and they do all the business. And Krampus just kind of like shows up every once in a while running over a bunch of roofs, like from rooftop to rooftop. And then at the very end, he shows up and was like, "Rawr! Okay, bye." But it is really fun to watch. The characters are really likable. There's a bunch of like dickhead characters you want to see get killed. But the thing I like the most about it, and I don't know if it was in the theatrical cut or not, but what happens in the finale of this, like the big reveal, the big twist, is one of the coolest things I've seen in the movie. And when it was over, I was like, oh my God, they went that specific area. Okay, I'm here for it. I love the way this ends. I think it is Pretty fantastic. I'm glad they didn't become a franchise because it would kind of ruin the ending of it. I'm starting to ramble. I'm getting tired. Love this one. That's Last Action Hero, another steelbook I picked up. I got this on Amazon. And this is the Arnold movie that got beyond lambasted when it first was released theatrically, to the point where I didn't even go and see it originally. I didn't go and see it until it was playing at a second-run theater for $1. The reviews were so bad. Everyone was saying like Arnold has basically like ruined his career with one movie. So skipped it. And then like I was working at Kmart at the time, so a bunch of us were talking about going to see a movie together after work. And then I was like, well, you know, the new Arnold movie is playing at the Dollar Theater if y'all want to drive up to Barrington, which is like from where I was living, like a good half an hour, 40-minute drive. And everyone was willing to do it. So we drove up there. It was me, this one dude who was a stock boy. I can't remember what his name was not a fan of him. I think it was my friend Holly and this other woman that worked in the layaway department. And I can't remember her name either. She was kind of intellectual, though, but she was interested. She's like, I haven't seen an Arnold movie in so long. Like, let's go. So we watched the movie. I'm dying the entire movie. I am laughing at all the jokes because it's like, I remember even said at some point during the movie, this was the movie that was made for me. Like, I appreciated all the movies it was lambasting. I got all the jokes, all the references. I was cracking up. Everyone else in my group is looking at me like I'm a crazy person, mostly because none of them really watched movies the way I did, or as many as I did. So the movie's over. We walk out. The other two friends I'm with, I think it was Holly and I think his name was Larry, we're walking out, and they're like, yeah, it was fun. And then the girl who worked in layaway, I cannot remember her name, walked out with me. She kind of had her head down, and I was walking alongside her. I'm like, so what did you think? And she goes, what do I think? I think that movie insulted my intelligence. And I went like, yeah, it was great, wasn't it? Like, I had so much fun watching this. I got everything. And I think it still holds up. I think it's like one of those movies that Arnold made that nobody really, at the time, gave the time of day to, but now it's really appreciated and considered a classic. Otherwise, it wouldn't have gotten this release in like a steelbook of all things. So had to get it. So basically, if you haven't seen it, this little kid who's a fan of Arnold movies ends up going into an Arnold movie with this golden ticket, magic ticket that he gets, and is like the only person within the movie, in the movie that he is participating in. He's the only person who understands the cliches and is trying to point them all out, but everyone thinks he's crazy. It's awesome. I love it. It's so much fun. Still never seen Arnold ruin his career with one movie. Yeah, we know which one that is. That came way after this one, dude. Ruin your career with this one weird trick. Yeah, I'm the famous comedian Arnold Braunschweiger. Yeah, I remember that. That was one of the things I still quote at work. But like rubber baby buggy bumpers. Didn't expect me to say that. I crack up every time I watch that. I think it's so much fun. Was it Arnie the Fart? Or Art the Fart was the gangster that died in the movie. Next up is one of my favorites, one of our family favorites when I was a kid. It's The Last Dragon. So didn't know anything about this. My parents rented it randomly. I think it was probably because it was the only thing in the video store at the time. I was not there. I did not get to pick. My dad or either my mom or my dad came home with this. And we all sat down to watch it, and we're like, as it went on, like at first we're like, this is kind of cheesy. And then like as it went on, we're just like, this is one of the most fun movies I've ever seen. And we ended up watching it basically weekly at home. My mother was obsessed with this. She wanted the soundtrack. She like knew all the sounds that the main character would make when he would do his kung fu stuff because he tries to emulate Bruce Lee. So he's always doing the wah stuff. So she would do it all with the movie. She would quote it all the time. It is just super fun. So essentially, this is a Motown martial arts movie mixed with like a roller disco movie, even though there's no roller skates in it. It is like a weird mishmash of like 70s things, and it's awesome. It is so much fun. It stars this dude, Tiamat, who was a karate champion, and also stars Vanity, who was like one of Prince's girls, as his love interest, and she gets involved with this gangster named... what was it? Eddie Arcadian, who was like made his riches in arcades and is trying to make his new girlfriend like the new Madonna, but she sucks. And there's a couple of times where you get to see her singing, and it's like, and he wants Vanity, who runs this like Soul Train type of dancing studio TV show thing, to put his girlfriend, his talentless girlfriend, on the show to help sell her new album, and she refuses, so he goes after her to try to bully her into doing it. She ends up asking Bruce Leroy, who's Tiamat's character, to protect her, and they end up falling in love, and it is super fun. It has a great soundtrack of songs by artists you will never know, have never heard from again, but it is super fun. And the bad guy, the real bad guy, is Shonuff, the Shogun of Harlem. And it is like silly and cheesy, but it is awesome. Like I said, we watch this almost every single week. Super fun. We watched it for my old version of my podcast when it was called Van Damme That's Good, and that's where the guest, who was a stage magician for burlesque shows, was the one who kind of said it's a mix of Motown, kung fu movies, and a roller disco movie. That was where that came from. And I kind of thought about it, and if that episode was still online, you could hear me say it, like, you're a goddamn genius. I never thought of it like that, but it is super quotable. Like I said, it is super fun. There's another one of my favorites from my childhood, and that's The Last Starfighter. This was the next attempt to make CGI effects a big thing after Tron. Tron tried it, and the Academy basically snubbed them and said, CGI effects aren't real special effects. You're cheating, so you're not eligible for an Oscar nomination at all. So they tried it again here and tried to make everything look a little bit more realistic. Didn't quite work out, but ended up seeing this at the Dollar Theater with my dad and my brother and my mother, and we all loved it. It is super fun, and it is a video game style thing. Where basically it's the story of King Arthur and the Sword and the Stone, except the Sword and the Stone is an arcade game that's used as a test put down in this trailer park by accident by aliens to look for a star pilot to help them fight in a war. This kid that lives in the trailer park beats the game. The aliens come down. They're like, hey, we want to recruit you to our star pilot program, and they kidnap him and bring him to outer space to fight aliens for them because of his strengths of playing a video game. The main character is a little bit whiny, a little too whiny if you ask me at times, but it's a lot of fun. Special effects I think they still, even in 4K, hold up. I watched this the moment this showed up in 4K to see if everything looked good, and it still does. It has a really great soundtrack by Craig Saffin that's kind of like a mix of synth stuff and orchestral, and the main theme, I think, is fantastic. It's a lot of fun. It is. It still holds up. Great 80s nostalgia there. The book Armada. I have the book Armada, Peter, but I have not read the book Armada, Peter. Talked about this, I think, in the end of the month stream from September, or the August-September combo month one, and that's League of Their Own. And I remember saying that didn't really know anything about it. I remember maybe seeing a trailer or a poster somewhere, but that was it. My mom took me and my brother to go and see this at the drive-in, and I was completely captivated. I did not know that there was a women's baseball team back during World War II, and that they were doing this to keep people coming in and trying to make money off somebody playing baseball while the men were away fighting the war. And also the movie where I really took notice of Gina Davis as being a pretty fantastic actor. The only movies I'd seen her in at that point were, I'll name three: Transylvania 6-5000, Beetlejuice, and The Fly. So I knew her from those three things, although she had won an Oscar at this point when she made this for The Accidental Tourist, but that's not something that someone in their teens wants to watch. So, yeah. But absolutely love it. Madonna's okay in it. What's her name? Lori Petty in this. While I get what's going on with her character, she's played a little overly whiny, I want to say. Everything with her was, it's stop. Just shut your mouth. Just stop talking. Rosie O'Donnell, first time I think I ever saw Rosie O'Donnell in something. But Tom Hanks is really, really good in this. And it's funny. Everything involving him is usually pretty funny, with the whole, that's some good peeing and all that. And the whole there's no crying in baseball scene. I absolutely love this. I watched that. I want to say I've watched that probably every year since it came out. You ever watched League of Their Own in so long? Yeah, it's so good, though. This one, I was pissed when it was over. So I keep on talking about all these DC animated films that go direct to video. And because these aren't played theatrically or anything like that, and they don't come out on streaming right away, you basically have to blind buy them. I try not to do that. I try to wait until maybe they've been discounted somewhere. I find a used copy somewhere. But I thought this one sounded pretty cool, so I went to Best Buy one day. It was sitting there. I said, all right, let's roll this. Picked it up. It's a Legion of Superheroes, and my God, did this suck. So it's all about Supergirl. Every time she tries to go and help somebody, like help Superman take care of a problem in Metropolis, she messes it up, and like lots of property damage happens. She hurts somebody. So Superman's like, look, you need training. I'm going to take you to the future, and you're going to train with a bunch of superheroes in training at this school in the future. Okay? And what's the first thing that happens? Well, she's all like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm a brat. He takes her to the future anyway. And the first thing she sees is this hot guy that's training to be a superhero. And she looks at him and goes, oh my God, I want to stay. And I was like, this movie sucks. I'm like, that is stupid. And it turns into this weird love triangle thing where it's Mon-El, who is from the neighboring planet of Krypton, who has basically the same powers as Superman and Supergirl. That's who she sees, and she's immediately like, squish! And then there's also this new version of Brainiac, and the two of them are kind of in love with her, and she has to pick which one she wants. It's so dumb. Next up, we have Leon the Professional. This is the follow-up from Luc Besson's La Femme Nikita, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. And this was one that I saw theatrically based on my love of La Femme Nikita. We went and saw it like opening weekend. It was me and a couple of friends. I know it was my brother, maybe one of his friends. And when it was over, I remember I just went like, I don't know what the hell that was I just watched, but I absolutely hated it. I did not understand. Like, I was expecting another kind of spy, thriller, action-y thing, right? Now you go back and you watch La Femme Nikita, and there is barely any action in that. There's maybe like 1.5 scenes of action in it. It's all drama and character development type of stuff. And I was kind of under the impression that it was a big action movie, and it really isn't. Went and saw this, and I got more of the same. So it is a drama that involves this hitman played by Jean Reno, and also Natalie Portman's first big movie. He lives in the same building as Natalie Portman and her white trash family. They all get taken out by some crooked cops. She's the only survivor, and he takes her in, and she asks him to train her to be an assassin like him. And it's weird, and it gets really creepy because she ends up falling in love with him, and she starts telling people that she's sleeping with him, and it's weird and gross. And it was kind of off-putting. I think that's one of the reasons why I was like, I don't like this. This is gross. This is icky. So, not a fan. Even though Gary Oldman is the bad guy in this, and he goes completely off the rails a few times, like randomly screaming stuff like, everyone, and shit. Didn't really care about it until I saw it on home video. And that was one of those times where my boss at the video store I was working at gave me the screener copy of the movie and is like, tell me how many copies we need to get. And for the store. And I handed it right back to him, like, I can tell you right now, 2. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah, I saw it in the theater. It's terrible. He's like, oh, okay. And he was so mad at me because we should have bought 10 copies of it for the store because we could not keep it in the store. He went to Blockbuster, which had opened down the street, and they had an entire wall of copies of it. And he's just like, and look, every one of those copies is out. Look at that money we could have been making. And I was like, you asked me my opinion. I didn't mean you didn't have to take it. You could have done whatever you wanted, but. And then I watched it on home video because I'm like, why is this renting so much? This is so bad. And my dad wanted to see it. I remember that now. And we watched together, and I'm like, okay, I get it. My expectations were like up here, and they should have been here. And like, I love it now. And this is the extended cut. This is the European cut, which puts in all the deleted scenes that were cut out that were considered too racy, which means even more Natalie Portman's in love with an old man stuff. But there's a lot more plot and character development going on in this one too, which it's just a fantastic movie. It's like a character study and not an action movie. And then there's this Leviathan. So this is an underwater horror movie. There was like this big boom of underwater movies coming out like in, was it 88 and 89? I want to say. We had Deep Star 6, which is an underwater horror movie. Then we had Leviathan, which is an underwater horror movie. Then we had The Abyss, which was James Cameron's big over-budget, drama that takes place underwater. I only saw 2 of them in the theater. I saw The Abyss and I saw this. So I wanted to see this because it had Peter Weller in it. RoboCop, and I thought he was freaking awesome back then. We went and saw it in the theater, opening weekend. My dad was doing that whole, I don't know if you guys are going to want to sit through this. This is rated R. You're going to get too scared. And I'm like, bitch, shut up. I've watched Hellbound Hellraiser 2, the uncut version. Shut your damn mouth. And we went and saw it, and it's basically The Thing, but underwater. It's like this Russian experiment where a bunch of Russians were experimenting with like DNA augmentation, trying to make a fish person who could survive under the sea and not have to wear a suit. And it went completely wrong, and the Russians sank that sub, and then a mining team of Americans find the sub, bring the experiment back. It's hidden in vodka, and stupidly decide to drink vodka they found in a torpedoed sub, or a torpedoed Russian ship. Not the smartest people ever. And they all start to mutate and turn into this big fish creature thing, which when you finally see it, they kind of hint at it the entire movie, and you see like flashes of it. When you actually do see it full on, it's like, what? They thought that was scary looking? But it is entertaining, and I think I brought it up before. I think it's probably when I bought this 4K version of this. I think this has one of the greatest line deliveries in the history of film. So the cast is really good. It's Peter Weller, Ernie Hudson, Daniel Stern, Lisa Albacher, who was in the first Beverly Hills Cop movie, Amanda, what was her name? Amanda Pays, who I had a huge crush on. She was in the Flash TV show that was on in like 1990. Hector Elizondo, who you've probably seen in a million movies. Ernie Hudson, and the lady who played Evil Lynn in the Masters of the Universe movie. Oh, man. What's her damn name? Richard Crenna's in this, too, from the Rambo films. Anyway, so once the monster gets loose in the underwater mining facility, they call topside to be like, hey, you need to come down here and get us and bring us back up. There's some crazy thing going on down here that's going to kill us. And the person on top, who is Evil Lynn from Masters of the Universe movies, like, oh, no, there's a hurricane coming. We can't come and help you yet. You guys are on your own until the storm clears. And they're like, we're all going to die. So she goes, well, I do realize that you all have gone through hell. And Ernie Hudson goes, bitch, we're still here. Cracks me up every time I see it. Just his delivery is fantastic. So how's everybody doing tonight? It's been a very tiring day. I'm losing the ability to talk, I think. Anyway, next up is Logan. This is the first R-rated superhero movie we got from Fox before Disney bought them out. This is the final Logan or Wolverine movie, the standalone Wolverine movies. So you had the 3 X-Men movies with Hugh Jackman. Then you got that X-Men Origins piece of junk, the Wolverine, and now just Logan. And this is like capping off his story. And it's really done well. It's done kind of like a Western. There's even, I think, like a black and white version of this out there to make it feel like an old school Western, even though it doesn't. But yeah, it's done completely seriously. It kind of shows the X-Men in a more realistic light. Like Professor X has the superhero equivalent of Alzheimer's, which means he is losing control of his powers periodically. And since he can basically control every person's mind on the face of the earth, you can imagine what that could be like, and it is really kind of freaky when you see it going down. And Wolverine is also kind of dying because the adamantium that was installed on his skeleton, 60 years prior to this or whatever, is like finally killing him. It's been poisoning him ever since it was put in him, and it's finally like slowing down his healing process. So he's eventually just going to die. He's going to take too much damage. He's going to croak, and this is like his final days kind of thing. He finds out he has a daughter. And that's all kind of resolved a little bit more in Deadpool and Wolverine, which is great. So I absolutely love this. It is, I think, one of the better superhero movies made by Fox, if not the best one. So had to have that. Next up is a Looper. This is Rian Johnson before he got Star Wars. It's a time-traveling tale where there are assassins living in the present who are being paid by people from the future to kill people that they want to disappear, but they don't want their body to be found in the future. And since they don't exist in the past, if they're killed there, they're basically going to be a John Doe and no one's going to be any the wiser. So there are gangsters out there who, when they want somebody taken out, they will send them back through time to a specific point where an assassin is waiting, and the person will appear, boom, dead, hide the body, you're done. And you get millions of dollars. And what's his name? Joseph Gordon-Levitt is one of these people. He's called a Looper. He's one of the people they pay to stand there and shoot this person when they pop up. Well, one day when he's doing it, his future self pops up in front of him to kill. And it turns into this big, epic thing, and it is kind of fantastic, and I don't want to ruin it, but it turns out that there's things going on in the future that we have not been privy to in the story until a certain point, and it's pretty awesome. There's this little kid with psychic powers. It's pretty nuts. Emily Blunt's in this too. I think this is one of the first movies I saw Emily Blunt in, because I want to say she did this not too long after The Devil Wears Prada, which I never saw, and I still haven't. But I really liked it. I did not think it was great by any means when I first saw it, but upon further rewatches, I've really gained an appreciation for it. I think it's really well thought out and really well done. And for a movie that was not made with a huge budget, it pulls off a lot of really cool ideas. So I'm a big fan of that. Oh God, I got the belches. One of my favorite horror movies. I don't even know if I would call this a horror movie. It's not scary. From the 80s, and that's Lost Boys. I was allowed to watch this one mostly because, well, this came out in 87. I want to say it came out on videotape probably at the beginning of 88. I don't think I'd done my big F you to my parents and watched Hellbound yet thing. But I was allowed to watch this because I had an issue of Fangoria magazine that covered a lot of the special effects, like the horror gore effects from this movie in it. And my parents saw me looking at the magazine, and I was not going, ew, gross, look at that. I was just kind of like, cool. And my parents were like, well, when they actually did see the movie, I think they went and saw it in the theater. And when it came out on home video, my parents were like, the stuff that he saw in that magazine is exactly the same stuff that's in the movie. That's the nastiest stuff there is. So if you can look at pictures of it in the magazine, he's going to be okay with the movie. So I was able to watch it, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was super fun. It was a different kind of a vampire movie. It wasn't like everything is all gothic and, emo and all that kind of stuff. And there's no one wearing capes and shit. It's just like this hip vampire movie that had a pretty cool soundtrack for the time. Now I listen to the songs from the movie and I'm just like, why did Tim Capello need to show up and is wearing his little no shirt and wearing that big chain, playing the saxophone up on stage, and people are like jamming to it like it's friggin' heavy metal? I'm like, no. But it has a great cast. It's just really fun. It's funny. There's a lot of really cool twists and turns in it. I really enjoy it. It's immensely rewatchable. That's basically the best way I can describe it. I've watched this more times than I can freaking count. But it's super fun. I would highly advise skipping the direct-to-video sequels if possible. They are the worst. There's so much sex in that movie. Yeah, there is. We're almost done. I'm like, oh my God, am I gonna have an episode of this that's under an hour and a half? What? So this is a movie that was released during COVID, and the only way you could see it, since theaters were shut down, was going to a drive-in, which is how my brother saw it, because he was living in LA at the time. They had a bunch of drive-ins out there. He drove to one with a bunch of friends, went and saw a bunch of movies, I want to say every week. And you couldn't see it any other way. And then it showed up on VOD, and I rented it. And I was like, because my brother had told me about it, he was like, you want to watch a really fun movie, watch this. So I was like, all right, fine. Rented it, and I was like, you are right. It's like if you were to take Harry Potter and mix it with, God, I don't know, like a Godzilla movie kind of thing, or trying to find something to compare to. It feels like a Harry Potter movie mixed with like an 80s monster movie. But it's fun, and it's funny, and it's kind of cute. It's a love story. It's called Love and Monsters, which stars Dylan O'Brien, who's from the Maze Runner films, and what's her name? She was in Matrix Resurrections. Jessica Henwick. She was on Iron Fist, the TV show, Matrix Resurrection. She's in Glass Onion, which I love, like I said. So basically, it's like we had like an apocalypse, but it was this comet that passed by Earth and like awoke all these ancient monsters and stuff that are like been like hiding in the Earth, and they take over the world. So now the humans are in hiding under the Earth in like these pockets of like survivors. And Dylan O'Brien and his girlfriend, when the apocalypse kind of happens, get separated. He thinks that she's dead. And the movie kind of follows him, sitting there going like, oh, I wish my girlfriend was still alive. Finds out that she's in another encampment that's like not too far where he is, but the trek to get there will probably get him killed. And he kind of goes, the hell with it. I'm going to go find my girl. And it's like his trek across like this monster-infested world to get to his girlfriend. And he like makes some friends along the way, finds a bunch of other survivors. One of them is Michael Rooker, and the other is Ariana Greenblatt, who was just in the Borderlands movie and played young Gamora in Infinity War, and young Ahsoka on the Ahsoka TV show and all that. And it's like really, really kind of charming and kind of cute. And like not all the monsters are bad. Some of them are like mutated crocodile looking things and stuff, but then some of them are kind of cute. And it's just a really fun, well-made, well-acted movie that didn't get a chance because it came out during the pandemic. So I had to pick up a copy of it when I finally saw it at Target. So it's a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. Next up, we have another Luc Besson movie, and that's Lucy. So this was Luc Besson's big return to filmmaking because after he did, I want to say The Messenger, the Joan of Arc movie that he made with Mila Jovovich, and then he did another one that was like Angel A or something like that, or Angela, or Angel. I think it was Angel A. He kind of retired from directing, but he did nothing but write and produce movies for other people. There were those French Taxi movies that were a big hit. He wrote the Taken films and produced them. I'm trying to think. There's that Prison Break movie with Guy Pearce that was god awful, but the District B13 films, those were him. Like he was just writing stuff like absolute crazy, and like I said, producing these movies when they would get made. And he finally decided to come back to directing with Lucy, and this ended up being a pretty big hit. And it's Scarlett Johansson gets kidnapped, and a sack of drugs is sewn into her belly, a sack of experimental drugs, so she can carry them across the border. I think going back to America or whatever. She's in like China, I think, at the time that this happens. And then she gets kidnapped by a rival gang, and they are trying to torture her to find out where the drugs are. And while they're kicking her in the chest, the bag bursts, and this experimental drug gets absorbed into her system, and it basically starts to help her evolve. And like you see her evolve from start off as a regular old human being, and then as like everything progresses, she starts getting like superpowers. And by the end, it goes in this completely crazy direction, which I absolutely love. And it's like the movie is split up into percentage of brain power she is unlocking as the movie goes along. And it's really weird at times, but it's a lot of fun. I like it a lot. Morgan Freeman just kind of shows up to say like exposition and walks away. But Scarlett Johansson looks like she's having a lot of fun doing a movie like this. It's kind of crazy. But visually, it's stunning. It has a great soundtrack. And then after this, he did Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. And that kind of like put his career on a damper because nobody really saw it. And the last movie I'm going to talk about tonight is an anime that I have seen once. And the reason I watched it the first time was because Steven Spielberg said that this is probably one of his top 10 movies of all time. I want to say. I read that somewhere. I heard him say that somewhere. And that is Lupin III, The Castle of Cagliostro. So this is like long-running. I think they're just films. I don't think it ever was an anime or a manga or anything like that. But it is I know it's a series of films about a master thief who is actually like a bumbling idiot. And there's actually a video game I have of the character as well, which I put in my PlayStation 2 Diamonds in the Rough video, which is actually a pretty decent game. And like I said, I saw this once, and it was in the early to mid 90s, and I haven't really seen it since. So when I saw it pop up on my Amazon feed as coming out on 4K, I was like, okay, I'll pick it up, and I still need to watch it again. But yeah, it's basically, like I said, about a bumbling thief, and I do not remember what the story was at all. He's attempting to break into Dracula's castle or something, because it looks like the castle from Castlevania. So I need to watch this again, reevaluate it, see if it needs to stay in my collection or not. So anyway, that's it for tonight. I will be back next week on Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Central, with the next installment of the Film Collection 2024 live streams. I'll be talking about 4Ks that begin with the letter M. Who knows where it'll end? It'll probably just be M and N, or just maybe M. But we'll see how that goes. I actually need to go and see how many I actually have for each letter to work that out. But I'm sorry I did not release the new episode of the Dungeons & Dragons campaign, Tides of Flame. I was going to release it 2 weekends ago, and I flaked. I was going to do it this weekend. I was beyond exhausted, and I just could not be bothered. And I'm probably going to do it this weekend, even though I'm recording the new episode of the Cartridge Club podcast with Captain Algebra and Jen from Retro Rivals for the Cartridge Club game of the month for September, which was Days Gone. So maybe I won't have time to work on it. And I still got to release an episode of the podcast, the movie starting. I was supposed to have released it 2 weeks ago, and I keep forgetting to do it. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, thanks for coming and hanging out with me tonight. I really appreciate I can't talk. See, like I said, I'm so tired I can't talk anymore. I appreciate each and every one of you for showing up and hanging out. Peter, Nick, Retro Coop. So I will talk to you all later. Have a good night, everybody. You'll be here next Thursday, an hour late per usual. I don't mind. Thanks for coming by. I'll talk to you all later. Chris of Midlife Crisis Media out.